discerning between resistance and fear and new data, a change of mind, new information that we get that says, actually, that goal isn't relevant anymore, or it's for later and I'm going to delay it. So just being really mindful of how we relate to the goals and strategies that haven't happened or that aren't going to happen. Hello there, this is Leanne Mallory, and I'm really glad you're here, and I'm glad because we're going to take some time today to reflect on the first quarter of the year. So I'm recording this around about March 15th. By the end of the month, it will be the end of the first quarter, and it's a really traditional time to stop and reflect on, how things are going so far. But before I get into that, I want to say a little bit about Rise Leaders. So I am the founder of Rise Leaders, which is an executive coaching and a leadership strategy firm that's committed to developing leaders and leadership teams that deliver exceptional impact. And when I say that, I'm talking about positive impact across multiple stakeholder groups. So these are leaders that are balancing multiple commitments, multiple concerns across usually a large group of people. When I work with clients, I am combining content that I've created, and I am also bringing in content, or I'm curating content actually from other thought leaders, and I'm just a one-person show. And so basically there's kind of a limited amount of exposure that I can make available. So the podcast here really is intended to share content and stories of leaders that I've worked with. I do a lot of interviews with leaders that I've actually worked with, and then content and models and tools from great thought leaders out there. As I said earlier, today I really want to focus on reflecting on the first quarter. Now, this is something that most organizations do. They do some form of quarterly review, and typically the focus is on, and rightfully so, metrics, wins, and strategic outcomes. And those are all great things to think about. We're going to do things a little bit differently today because we're going to expand past that. And actually, we're going to include the typical reflections or the reflective questions, but we're going to transcend those questions, kind of pick our head up and look around a little bit, be a bit more contextual when we do this actually quarterly review. Now, there's another thing that happens every year. I'm sure you already know about this, and it happens 4 times a year, and it's called the seasons. And we transition 4 times a year from winter to spring to summer to fall and back to winter again. And the ancient peoples, they really built their lives around these transitions. So I wanted to bring our focus to the time of the year as well. So around about March 20th, March 21st, we will have the spring equinox. So this is the time of the year when some people would say the earth is in perfect balance. We have an equal amount of daytime and nighttime, light and dark. And then from this point forward, the days will get longer. We'll notice it getting warmer. And then in June, the days will start shortening again until we get to December, when then we have the shortest amount of daytime. But that's for another podcast. What I want to do is kind of situate ourselves and recognize that we have business quarters, but we also have seasons, and we're a part of this natural cycle, and we are impacted by it, and we can bring more and more attention to that. So we're going to take a deliberate pause today, and we're going to zoom out and be reminded that we're part of a larger context. This may be, I'm crossing my fingers actually, this may be an episode that you want to listen to more than one time. So you may be out walking, hiking, running, driving, doing the chores around your house, whatever it is that you do when you listen to a podcast. What I'm hoping is that you might want to listen to it again and, hit pause as you're listening to it and actually reflect on some of the questions that I'm going to be asking. So here we go. The first thing that I want us to pay attention to is location. And so by that, I mean your location. And so you can think about where you physically are right now. And so lift your head up and look around a little bit and gaze out into the future, into the horizon, into the distance. And just notice where you are. Notice what day it is, what time of day that you're listening to this podcast. How are you feeling? What's already happened in your day today and in your week and in this month and in this year? And what are you looking forward to? So just take a moment and locate yourself. This is the time with the spring equinox of new beginnings. So as you're looking around, you may notice that some bright green sprouts, the buds on the trees, hearing more birds, and just seeing more life. There's a new excitement. New things are sprouting. And I'm wondering if you're feeling that yourself. Are you feeling these new beginnings? Why or why not? If you're feeling that, do you enjoy it? If you're not feeling it, is this a feeling that you could embrace, recognizing that it is a time of new beginnings? As I mentioned before, the days are getting warmer. And in fact, winter, I hope, just gave its last big performance here, going out audaciously in many places. We had a lot of hail and some sleet around here yesterday and some really cold weather last week. So I'm hoping that this is winter's final performance. Think also about expanding past yourself. So we've looked at yourself. We've looked at the context of the weather, the spring, and I'm curious about relationships. Who are you with? Who have you been with? Who are you going to be with? Are you looking forward to the relationships in your life? You might locate yourself in a long arc of time, remembering your ancestors, your parents, your grandparents, your greats, and then also imagining your legacy. What legacy is it that you hope to leave? And here's another context to consider. We are still in the first few decades of a new millennium. So even thinking about that, 2022, in terms of the long arc of time. And you can add any other context that is helpful for you to remind you that it's not just all about looking down and seeing business results, but that we are situated in a particular time, in a particular place, surrounded by people, surrounded by things we love, and things that we want to accomplish. One of the things that I do every year is I create a guide called Beginning Again. And in fact, I'll put the link in the show notes for the Beginning Again guide for 2022. And really the first question I ask there is, who is the person that you want to become? And what is the impact that you want to make? Now, you may want to just reflect on that again. And then when you get back home and you get a piece of paper out in front of you, make some notes. If you've completed the process already or answered this question already, look back at it and see, does it still feel right? Does it still feel true to you? Who we are matters, and who we are shapes what we're able to do. If you also created a vision for yourself, what I like to do is think, it's December 31st, 2022, and you're sitting with a friend or a colleague, and you're talking about the great year that you just had. What are you saying? How are you describing it? Again, hopefully you took some notes on that at the beginning of the year. Look back on that vision and see if that still feels right. Now, I don't know about you, but Q1, particularly January and February, were not anything like I thought that they would be. And so as I look at my vision, there are adjustments that I'm going to make. Some things have changed. And I think that that's really not just appropriate, but that it's important that that vision is living inside of you. It's not just something that we do at the beginning of the year and then we put it back on the shelf and then pull it out at the end of the year, and we can be kind of surprised at actually what we wrote down. And maybe it was so cemented in our brains that we were able to make it happen. But for me, oftentimes I look at my vision and I think, oh, I kind of forgot about that, or I wasn't very realistic and I didn't check back in. So after looking at your vision now, and by the way, you can answer these same questions with your team, the team that you lead. You can answer these questions with a mastermind or accountability group or a forum. But, going through and doing this activity as a group is also really helpful, and it feels very supportive. So look back again at the goals and the strategies that you wrote down at the beginning of the year. Again, just checking in with yourself. How's it going? It is super important that as you're looking through this, you're reviewing your goals and your strategies, your vision, all of that, that you do it with compassion. So we want to balance these really high standards that we hold. We want to balance that with compassion, knowing that life changes, things happen, and that we need to be flexible. Some things happen that aren't great, and we're having to recollect ourselves. And sometimes an opportunity or something happens out of nowhere that we want to take advantage of. And it wasn't on our radar. It wasn't on our plans. We just adjust. We just adjust and keep going. So balance your standard with compassion. Another thing to pay close attention to is discerning for the things that you haven't started or that haven't gone well. Maybe you keep putting it off. Discerning between resistance and fear, which are those things that, keep us from moving forward, that we want to actually move past or find a way to put ourselves in a better position so that we do achieve what we want. So discerning between resistance and fear, and new data, a change of mind, new information that we get that says, actually, that goal isn't relevant anymore, or it's for later and I'm going to delay it. So just being really mindful of, how we relate to the goals and strategies that haven't happened or that aren't going to happen. Also important, kind of moving on to a different topic now, is our relationships and our community and the cultures that we're creating. How is all of that going? Are you personally contributing to the well-being and the happiness and prosperity of others? If you lead a team, what's the impact that you're having on that team's culture? Most of us have family and friends and communities that we're a part of. How are we interacting with those groups of people in generous ways so that the organization, the group, continues to evolve because of our participation in it? And speaking of others, are you taking note and appreciating the dependency that we all have on other people to accomplish our goals? Very few of us have goals or things that we can accomplish completely on our own. Even something as simple as making a meal involves probably hundreds of people before the food that we pick up at the grocery store and bring home and prepare for a meal is ready. So very few things we accomplish on our own. I think it's a great daily practice to have an appreciation or a gratitude practice that says, who are the people or the things that we're really grateful for, and even to express that to those people. So how are we in relationship? How are we as a companion? How are we in community with others? Now, finally, I want to just highlight and ask you about the processes, the systems, the practices, the structures that you have in place that support the achievement of your goals or what's important to you. So if you go back to that question at the beginning, who is the person that I want to become and what's the impact that I want to make? Are your strategies and goals aligned with that? Are your relationships aligned with that? And do you have practices, systems, structures, processes in place that also support that so that you're not just like wishing, hoping that it happens, but that you've actually created something that makes it easier for you to accomplish what you want to accomplish. Sometimes it means getting rid of things. I just got off the phone with a client who she shared with me that she deleted over half of her Slack channels. And by doing that, she freed up so much space and that she wasn't having to use her mental energy to not respond to Slack or to not look when the little knock shows up, but that she wasn't even receiving the notifications. So that really freed her mind up to really focus on the things that she needed to focus on. Do you have practices that support your well-being? Have you planned some time off for the things that you love to do? And are you finding ways to integrate those things regularly into your one precious life? So as you're contemplating this transition from Q1 to Q2, or from winter into spring, take time to pause, sit back, look around, take some notes, recalibrate, walk in nature, take in the beauty, look around you. Do what makes you come alive. Be spring. Be sure and check out the show notes because I've got some interesting links out here. And as always, I really do appreciate if you comment, like, share on whatever platform you're on, podcast platform that is. And if you check me out on YouTube, that's probably the best place to write in any comments and have a conversation. Thank you so much for joining me today. Thank you for the work that you're doing in the world. If you want to get in touch with me, you can do so via my website at rise-leaders.com. There are contact places on the home page and on the About page. I would really, really love to hear from you. I hope you're doing well. I hope you have a great spring, and I look forward to being with you again soon.